Zoom always takes about 30 seconds or so to just get everybody in there. So I think we are ready to go. So as I mentioned, my name is Chad Harris. I'm the technical support lead at Apsona. And I'm super excited for our webinar this month. We do a webinar every month on the third Thursday of every month. So you are all welcome to all of our future webinars. And I believe that we are starting to post them ahead of time in various spaces. So if you're not seeing where they are, feel free to send us an email at support@apsona.com or info@apsona.com and ask those questions, and we can make sure to direct you to the right place. And today, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about our multi-step reporting, and we love to have superfans be a part of our presentation. And we have Vidya Kagan with us today. We're so excited to have you, Vidya. Vidya is going to be sharing about her experience with multi-step reporting from a customer's perspective, and we just think that's a really valuable perspective to offer. And we don't want to be the talking heads all the time, so we'd love to invite guests and have folks show up and help us talk about Apsona and how great it is, because we all think it is. If we go to the next slide, I'm going to just kind of talk a little bit more about Apsona, and then we'll hand it over to Vidya. Very good, thank you. So Sona in Hindi is gold. So we call Apsona the golden app. And for so many people it is, because it is just such a central, crucial piece of their admin experience with Salesforce. Apsona was founded in May of 2009, so we've been around in the App Exchange for quite a while. We have over 1,700 customers. We have great ratings on the App Exchange. We have excellent support. We invite you all to ask questions as you're learning about Apsona at support@apsona.com. We also do twice weekly office hours that we want to make sure people know about. Tuesdays, oh, I need my calendar. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we'll get the information posted in the chat about exactly how to join those. And we have a link that you can go. You don't need to sign up ahead of time. Those are great spaces to learn about Apsona and to share your successes with each other, and also just to ask technical questions and dive in. It's really fun. We do it really informal and live, so it's always a good time. And Apsona is a very flexible app that works with all data models. So any package you've got installed, any custom objects, Apsona will work with them. I think that I've talked enough. So I think we're going to start to move into our presentation. So with us today, we have Vidya Kagan from Menlo School. Vidya is the Director of Development Services with Menlo School, and they have been using Apsona for many years and have become Apsona Superfans, along with many of you on the call. So Vidya, welcome. And I think I'm going to hand the mic over to you to take over, and I will be here in the background as you need for any questions or clarifications.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Chad. Thanks everyone for joining today. Let me just bring up the slides here.
Perfect.
Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you're located today. My name is Vidya, and I'm pleased to be here today to share our school story with Salesforce and Apsona. We are definitely Apsona Superfans here at Menlo School. I joined the school about 10 years ago. It's been a great ride. I've been in fundraising for over 20 years. I first started working at Harvard Law School doing stewardship and donor relations. I then moved to a small independent school in the Boston area, and now I'm here at Menlo. My job is data, all about data, the database, and prospect research. As you can see from my slide, in my 20 years, I have covered the range of fundraising jobs, anywhere from annual giving to events to data. And here is where I am in the data world, and I love it. I absolutely love data, and I love helping people. Let me give you a little bit of background about Menlo School and then our journey with Salesforce and Apsona. After that, I'll dive into some Apsona reports that we've created, some multi-step reports that we've created, so that you can see how we're using Apsona on a regular basis. Menlo School was founded in 1915, so we're over 100 years old, which is kind of rare considering schools in California. We started as an all-boys school, and now we're a co-ed school, grades 6 through 12. We're located in Atherton, which is about 30 miles south of San Francisco and definitely in the heart of Silicon Valley. So that can give you a little bit of a sense of the vibe and the environment we are here in the Bay Area. We raise about $6 million annually. That includes annual fund, our alumni scholarship fund, and any restricted gifts. Our most recent big news fundraising achievement in the last 10 years that I've been here is that we completed a capital campaign back in 2020. We raised $102 million for the school. This was a combination of endowment, raising money for our endowment, as well as raising money for several building projects on campus. Now, our Apsona story started back in the 2016-2017 school year. That's when we decided to transition from Blackbaud Razor's Edge to Salesforce and PSP. We partnered with Cloud for Good, who's a consulting company, to do the build and implementation. We started the build in the summer of 2016, and we went live in April of 2017. Cloud for Good was and continues to be terrific. They actually were the ones who recommended Apsona as a report builder and also as a batch gift entry tool app for us to use. As far as reporting was concerned, the Salesforce reports that are native to Salesforce and PSP are definitely well done and powerful and user-friendly. The reason Cloud for Good recommended Apsona was because after learning about Menlo and our needs in the fundraising department and how complicated some of our work can be, they recommended Apsona for multi-step reports and more powerful reporting functionality. We saw a few demos, we listened to Cloud for Good and their recommendations, and we said, yes, sign us up. Cloud for Good also trained us on Apsona. We continue to work with them on all of our Salesforce needs and our Apsona needs. Now, why did we pick Apsona? As I mentioned, it's definitely more powerful than Salesforce reports. The beauty of the multi-step reports in Apsona is that you can connect any object to any other object. You can also do some cool things like calculations within the multi-step report. This makes it a lot easier to have all your data in one place, in one report, instead of creating and comparing many different reports. We've all been there. We've all run reports in our different databases, this Excel sheet, that Excel sheet, done some VLOOKUPs, comparing data and trying to make sense of it all using multiple spreadsheets. Apsona eliminates the multiple spreadsheet issue. You can put everything in one report, one spreadsheet, and it's beautiful. You can export it into Excel or get a CSV file. You can do whatever you want with it afterwards. It really is the golden app as far as that's concerned because everything's in one place.
Nice to hear.
So now let me dive into a couple of scenarios. Our first scenario is some simple multi-step reports that I'd like to show you. And our second scenario is some complicated or more complex multi-step reports. So give me a moment. I'm going to share my Apsona screen with you so that we can look at the first report, which is a class list.
Sounds good. And while you're doing that, I'll just mention, because I forgot to mention before, that folks, if you have questions that are building and you want to get them in a queue, there's the Q&A tab that you can pull up and ask a question there. And if you want to throw things in the chat, feel free as well. We're monitoring that as well. Cool. All right.
Great. Can everyone see? Chad, can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's looking good. We see the MSR edit screen.
Wonderful. So let me go back to the beginning. This is our Salesforce instance. You can see Menlo School CRM, and then on the top menu bar, I have Apsona. So I just click on that. And this is where I spend like 99% of my time when I'm in Apsona. I go to reporting tools and multi-step reports. So we have 1 million reports. I'm going to show you just a few. This report is our class list report, and it's simply a way for us to run a list of all the students and their parents and their contact info and giving information. It is all in one place. And it's something that we use both internally as well as externally. For example, parent volunteers want to know, my son is a freshman in the freshman class of 2020, I guess it'll be 2027 in the fall. Can you run a list? Because I want to message all of the parents to tell them about an event that's coming up. So this has come in handy, very handy for a number of different reasons. You can see it starts off with the student, because it's student focused. And the object I'm connecting to, is contact, the student information. Here, retrieve fields. These are the different fields I'm asking it for: last name, class year, email address. You can pick whatever you want here. And then filter terms. This is where I'm asking for, in this case, I picked class of 2023. So the kids who just graduated, current seniors. You can also click range and sort. So if you want to sort by last name, first name, whatever, this is where you select it. And then linkages, there's nothing here because this is the first step. And the way Apsona multi-step reports work, all of the subsequent steps, so in this case, steps 2 through 10, all link back to something in step 1. So I'll go back to, so this is student. So now household. So I want to know which household does the student live in. And this is where I connect it to the account. So all that, sorry, let me go back to step info. So this is database object account. So I've retrieved the account ID as well as the name, greetings, contact information, things like that. And then linkages, that's where I'm connecting the account from this step to match the account on step number 1. Like you can see here, previous step student.
Vidya, I want to highlight something you said a second ago, because I think it's key for folks who haven't experienced much of multi-step report, which is that first step kind of sets your stage, right? The first step grabs the records that are at kind of, in a way, your focus, or they create the limit of which records we're going to analyze. And then the following steps are always linking back to that. So you're not going to see a household where there's not a student represented in the first step, right? No, that's a key thing. And as people think about how to build reports, it's helpful to think like, okay, what am I trying to get at? What's the limit of records I want to create? And that essentially becomes your first step.
Right. Cool. And sometimes what you think is the first step isn't the first step. So sometimes you need to change your thinking or just be a little flexible and sometimes start from scratch. Sometimes I've run reports where I start with the parents and then I realize that's not really what I want to start with. I need to start with the students. So you start from the beginning.
Yeah. So
it can take different forms, but if you keep playing around with it and keep testing different things, eventually you'll, or if you ask for help from the Apsona folks during our office hours or your consultant, then they'll set it straight and help you think through it. So the next object is home address, contact info, and you can see the database objects I'm connecting to are different here. And then when I get to step 7, this is AF means annual fund. So now I'm looking at gift information. So now I'm connecting it to the opportunity. And that goes for step 7, 8, 9, and 10, looking at how much did they give to the annual fund in that fiscal year, in that school year.
And how are you linking that step? What's your linkage here?
Sure. So in this one, it's the student and their account, as well as the opportunity and what account it's connected to, or what account it's on, I should say.
Yeah.
So everything goes back to the account. So this report is helpful, like I said, for internal and external uses. The other thing I can do with this report, and I've done with our grandparents program, is I can add another step to show the relationship between grandparents and the current parents and the kids. So it's 3 generations, as well as the giving history and all of that good stuff. So definitely that's a longer report, but it's the same logic that you put together, and you add another step in there for relationship, the database object you're looking for is relationship. So that's just a quick class list example that anyone can build, and it's very quick to run. You can run it and export the data into Excel as you wish.
Vidya, can I ask a couple questions from the audience that's related to this report?
Mhm.
Or okay, is this an okay time to do it, or would you rather wait?
Sure, sure.
I think they're real quick. One is, could you just kind of re-describe how you use this report? So you're gathering student info, household info, donation information. So tell us again, kind of in the real world, how are you using this report?
Sure. This report's helpful for internal and external uses. So let me give you an example for external. We have a parent team for the freshman class of 2027. They want to get a list of all the students and the parents and their emails to message out to the students. I'm sorry, message out to the parents. We have a parent event coming up. So this is a good way. This list helps me put together the student name along with the parent name and the student contact information and the parent contact information. I can add their email address or their phone number and their home address for that matter. I can also put the primary contact, which in our model is typically the dad in the household, as well as the spouse, who's typically the mom. This is also helpful internally when we're talking about giving history. For example, I'll use this freshman class again. What if we want to do some sort of freshman class giving challenge? That's something that I'd run this for my colleagues internally so that they can see, okay, these are the students, these are the parents, this is how much they've given over the last 1 to 2 to 3 years. And then we can figure out ask amounts and a giving challenge accordingly.
Great. So you're using it for a lot of different purposes. It's kind of a central report for you all.
Right.
That's excellent. One other quick question is, if you go to step 7, the opportunities, are you using this step to sum like donation totals at that household level?
Yes, great question. That is one of the key things here. I am. So for the first step you can see is account, because everything's connected to the account. And then the second step is opportunity amount, and I've clicked sum. So if you click this little downward arrow, it'll open up another window. And here's where you can click minimum, maximum, average, or you can click sum. So in this case, I'm clicking sum. And it has been clicked before.
I'm guessing you've chosen this from the metrics field, the metrics section down below in this report, where you can, if you drop down that arrow next to metrics, and you were to type amount, you would get to amount and you could use the sum. Yeah, right there, and clicking sum. And if we want to dive in a little later, if we have time, I could kind of open up a developer org and talk a little bit more about how metric fields are helpful. But I would say this is one thing that allows Apsona to stand out, is that any field that can kind of be rolled up in any way or summed at a higher level becomes available in your metrics section. And so without having to list a bunch of opportunities and add them up, you are simply saying, show me all the amounts summed at the account level. And it does it for you in Apsona here. And it's pretty impressive. It allows you to sometimes avoid creating roll-up fields. If you are comfortable just looking at the results on a report, you can just build it with metric fields. So Katie, you had that question. And if you want us to dive in a little bit more later after the presentation, we can do so. Sorry, didn't mean to take over. Back to you.
No, perfect. Perfect. So Chad's right. When I created this report, I did go to metrics, and this is how I put this field here. But the other way to do it is you can click down here and click sum. So there are a couple ways to go about it. And I did the same thing for the subsequent steps.
Right. So you get multi-year totals. You don't have to rely on kind of the standard like total last year on the account. You can actually use opportunity data. It's pretty great.
Right, right.
Great. I think that's it in terms of questions. You're welcome to keep cruising.
Okay, great. So now let me show you our annual fund report, which is my favorite report in the whole world. So this is for the current school year, 2022-2023, which we're almost done with.
Mhm.
So I usually create this report in the beginning of the school year. So I'll be doing it shortly for the new school year. I'll probably create it in August. And you can see on the left side, it has quite a few steps, 18 steps. And the reason is because we're trying to put all of this information in one place, which is what I mentioned at the beginning. That's what one of the beautiful things about Apsona's multi-step reports is that you can put all this data in one spreadsheet. You can just connect object to object to object. In this case, we start with the household.
Okay.
So this report, I'll start from the very top. This report is for our volunteers, our annual fund committee, who are parent volunteers. When we run this report, it comes out into a big Google sheet, big Excel sheet, and then I copy and paste that all into a Google sheet. And the Google sheet is what our parent volunteers access as they're soliciting, as they're asking for annual fund gifts from other parents. So the household is which parent are we soliciting? So for retrieve fields, it's got the account name, it's got their last name, the spouse name, so on. Under filter, it says the record type has to be a household account as opposed to an organization account, because we have organizations in our database too. And then the second step is they have to be parents, as opposed to alumni or a grandparent or a faculty member. So this is key because our parent volunteers are only soliciting other parents at the school. Then range and sort, I didn't pick anything here. And then linkages, again, because it's step one, there are no linkages. So here, the database object is account. So now if you go to the next step, the database object I'm connecting to is solicitor. So now what this field will tell me, or this section will tell me, is which solicitor, which parent volunteer is responsible for soliciting the household in step one.
So the volunteers you referenced that are accessing the Google Sheets are going to be in this step.
Right. So
Okay.
that's where it says solicitor full name. So that is the name of the solicitor. So let's say Aaliyah is a current parent at the school. She would be step one, right? Her name would be in step one. And let's say Chad is the solicitor. He will be soliciting Aaliyah for her annual fund gift. Chad's name will be here in step two.
Got it.
Then step three, we go to the opportunity. So again, this is the report I created for this school year that we're just finishing now. When did the person make their gift, their annual fund gift? So this will retrieve the date. So it looks at the opportunity object. Step four is the same thing, the opportunity object, and this is the amount. What is the gift amount? Annual fund plus ASF is our alumni scholarship fund.
Got it. So are these filtering these opportunities to look at just the right ones that are related to this fund?
Right. So the way I've done it is you can click here, which funds, because we have hundreds of funds here, but I only want the annual fund and I want the ASF fund, those two funds to be added up. So these are the fund numbers for those funds.
Got it.
So I only selected those. And then for the range, we're only talking about this school year. I want to see what that household is given this school year. So you can see the range is our fiscal year goes from July till June.
Mm-hmm.
And then record type, what kind of gift is this? So it's not among, so I did it the opposite. Instead of among, I did not among. So it could be a donation, it could be a pledge, it could be a matching gift, it could be a stock gift.
Got it.
Now, step five gets a little tricky here. So this is yet another database object called partial soft credit. So soft credit, what that means is, let's say a foundation makes a gift. Let's say it's the Smith Foundation that sends us a check on behalf of Joe Smith, who's a current parent. We input the gift in Salesforce on the Smith Foundation's record because they're the legal donor. They're the hard credit donor. And we give soft credit to Joe Smith because that's what the cover letter said, or that's what the check said, or that's what the donor told us. I'm sending a gift from my foundation. This is my annual fund gift. So we give Joe soft credit. It's important to capture that too in this report to see the full picture of a donor's gifts. Yeah. So that's what this partial soft credit object is all about.
Excellent. Yeah, partial soft credits can be hard to kind of like understand without really digging in. This is good stuff.
And then matching gift is back to opportunity. We put matching gifts right on the opportunity record, the household's record. So the Joe Smith household, for example. So I did that for this school year. And then as you can see on the subsequent steps, I've got that for previous school years, because when we're giving this data to our volunteers, it's important for them to see what have they given in the past so that they can, when they're asking for a gift for this school year, they have some background and some history. Then we get down to home address, which now you're connecting to the account. Primary contact info, we're connecting to the contact. Spouse, again, is also contact. And then constituent code. This means, is the person a parent? In this case, we know they are, but I have that column anyway. Could they also be an alum of the school? Could they be a faculty member at the school? Could they be a trustee at the school? So this is where I have several columns with a check mark indicating if a person is in any of those additional constituent types. And then finally, this is a tricky one, relationship, database object relationship. This step is, the point of this step is to list the students in that household, current students, as well as any graduated students, any alumni in that household. It's important for the parent volunteers to see, okay, who are the kids at the school right now as I'm talking to this household and asking them for an annual fund gift. I want to make my phone call or my email personal, right? Like, oh, how's your daughter Janie doing in your freshman year? Or how's your son Mikey doing now that he's a senior? You want to put those kinds of things in your communication. And it's helpful to know if the family has had kids go through the school already. So you, again, you can talk to that if it's appropriate in your communications. And so that the person also, the volunteer, understands giving history. Wow, they gave $10,000 3 years ago, but they only gave $2,000 last year. Why is that? Oh, it's because 3 years ago they had 3 kids at the school and now they only have 1 kid at the school. So things like that, all that data is really helpful for our volunteers to see as they're preparing to solicit the other parents in their class.
Okay. And I'm noticing in this step, whoops, let's see if I can do this right with my little annotate tool. You are using our column blocks. So it looks like you're trying to get those students not vertically listed under the account, but right next to each other horizontally to keep them kind of in a row. Is that right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
So
that's a feature not a lot of folks know about. It's a great one though.
thank you, Chad. Thank you for saying that, because there are these other things, the formulas, the early combining, hiding a steps output, and then this last one, showing it in column blocks. There's so many different things you can do with Apsona multi-step reports. So it's helpful to read everything and see everything. And once you run it, if it doesn't show the right way, there's usually something that you can check or click that will make it display the way you want it to.
Yeah. Good point. Can I ask a couple of questions about this report? Or do you want to, okay. Somebody was asking, I think it was there's a step where you were trying to get the, I think the most recent gift, I want to say. Maybe that was step, I'm not sure. Is there a step in which you're trying to highlight one opportunity out of a bunch, like the most recent or something like that?
Right. So in step 7, let me click on this one. So this is the first annual fund transaction. The reason we ask for first is because sometimes people pledge. So maybe in September they say, yes, I'll pledge $500 to the annual fund. Great. We input that and that's their first transaction. And then let's say they pay that $500 in December. That would be another transaction, another opportunity that we would input in Salesforce. But what our volunteers want to know is the first interaction, to give them an idea, oh, does this person pledge or commit on the early side, or are they on the late side? So to do that, let me just retrieve fields.
Yep, I think we're back to our metric fields. There we go.
So close date, you can put newest or most recent. You can put the oldest, or I guess you can do count, which I've never used that, but we have used newest and oldest. So that's the purpose of that, to understand when somebody has made their first gift. So for example, let's say the first annual fund, our volunteers start soliciting in October. So let's say the people on their list, the first date annual fund transaction was in December. So our volunteers will be like, I'm not going to bug this person in October. I'll wait till December. When December rolls around, then I'll email that person because I can see last year he or she made their first annual fund transaction in December. So the idea is to know that data so you can plan your solicitations accordingly.
That's phenomenal. You were squeezing so much information for these volunteer solicitors into these reports. They're really just getting a full 360 view for the year, and that's just amazing. I want to just call out that Vidya does have some live sensitive data, so we're not going to run these reports. But if we wanted to look at a feature that we're highlighting, I'm happy to kind of replicate it in my developer environment if needed. But yeah, we got to not run it for that purpose. Let's see. I'm going to start to review some questions here, but feel free to keep going in terms of what you'd like to show us.
So this is the last report, and then we can open it up for questions. This is our alumni report that we created for something we call Battle of the Classes. We do this every fall, every November for a 2-week time period. The idea is about participation. So each class dukes it out, battles it out to see who can get the highest participation. So the idea, and it's the most recent classes. We don't go all the way back to like 1915 when we started the school. We start at class of 1980 to class of 2022, last year when we did this. The idea is how many classmates in your class can give and then drive up the participation rate. So last year, one of our classes, class of 1986, they hit either 86 or 96%, some ridiculously high percent of their class had participated in Battle of the Classes. And by participated, I mean make a gift. It can be a gift of $1, it could be a gift of $1,000. The whole point is that they're participating. So to do this, we created a campaign in Salesforce. So that's what the first step is, that database object campaign. I'm not going to go through all this. It's kind of complicated, but I want to highlight just a couple of things.
Sure thing. To
show why this report is more complex and more interesting. The second step is the campaign member. So in this case, the alum's name. So let's say I'm class of 1986. This is where my name would pop up. And then database object contact. And this is actually the contact information for me, my phone number or my email address. Then I click on giving. So this connects to opportunity, just like in my previous reports. And here is where it'll show some, what have I given this school year? I don't want to share this information. Oh, so I should back up. This information is shared with our alumni volunteers, just like the annual fund report was shared with our annual fund volunteers. This Battle of the Classes report data, I pull it into a Google Sheet, and that's shared with all of our alumni volunteers as they're making their phone calls and doing their outreach. Because this is about participation and not about dollars, we don't want to tell them how much a person gave. We just want to say, yes, they gave, or no, they didn't give. So I created a step here, which is step 4, which does show the amount, total gifts and pledges. But then in step 5, I've copied step 4, added a calculated field, and this is simply a yes, no. So this column just says, is the person a donor? Yes or no. And it'll put a check mark or a 1 if the person's a donor, or a 0 if it's not.
And if I could just pop in here, I want to just quickly show what we're doing here with this calculated field is we're actually referencing the previous step. So you could see that the step is typed out and it's looking at a certain field in that step. And then it's saying if it's above 0, then give me a 1. So I just think it's very cool that in these calculated fields, you can look up to previous steps and say, for that specific field and that specific step, what's the answer? I just think that's really neat.
And then I did the same thing with the previous year's giving. So again, so the volunteer can see, oh, the person gave last year, but they haven't yet given this year. I'm going to call them. Or the person already gave last year and gave this year. Awesome. I'm going to move to the next person on my list.
Excellent.
So this was really fun for me to create and play with and learn the formulas because it did exactly what I had hoped it would do. Otherwise, I would have been the one in the Excel spreadsheet putting yes, no, or making a formula or something like that. But
Yep.
I didn't have to do that because multi-step reports did it for me.
And it's here for future use as well to repeat.
Yep.
Excellent. All right, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. These were very true to life, applicable examples that I think a lot of people can relate to. So thank you very much for choosing those examples.
Sure.
I also wanted to note about how you are sharing these with various volunteers, and they only need to see their portion, right? Like for example, with the fund volunteers, they are responsible for a certain group of people, and so you're taking the Apsona report, you're putting it onto a Google sheet, and you're using security within Google, right, to just share the right tab with the right people or the right people.
Right.
And I think that's a very creative way to take the data that's so rich in Salesforce and put it out into the world, right? Because I think that is a use case that a lot of people struggle with, is like, I've got people outside of the Salesforce user sphere and they need access to this data. What do I do? And there's a lot of creative ways, and you've chosen one using some good free tools out there like Google. So I think that's neat.
Yeah, that's a whole webinar in and of itself. How to do that. And that's thanks to one of our parent volunteers several years ago. One of my previous colleagues had the idea of using Google Sheets, and she recruited this parent volunteer. So the two of them created a whole system that we've been using, gosh, now for 6, 7, maybe, yeah, probably 7 or 8 years now. And it's been very, very powerful, very helpful.
Excellent. And it's so great to see that good stuff coming from your volunteer network. It's so neat to get them engaged and they build something that's useful and that you can carry forward.
Definitely. So I do have a couple takeaways. Chad, do I have time just to share my screen?
Please, yes, please do.
Okay. Great. So we looked at class lists. Then we looked at the annual fund report and the alumni battle of the classes report. Oh, and the future. I forgot about this slide. For the future, we have a couple of things that are on our mind. We have parents of alumni that we want to engage more with the school, whether it's events or communications, just have them continue to be involved with the life of Menlo School. And we also want to solicit them and ask them to contribute, give back to the school, however they would like. Running parents of alumni reports can be tricky because people may have one kid here or have had one kid here, maybe have several kids here. So the segmenting and the filtering gets tricky and complicated. So this is something that I've started and stopped a few times with Apsona's help and with Cloud for Good's help. But because of whether it's my bandwidth or my colleagues' bandwidth or the turnover we've had, we've just never been able to really dive in and really get into all this data and do it in a focused way. Now that we're fully staffed in our office, I think we'll have more time in the new school year to really jump into parents of alumni and use Apsona to help us get the data out of our system. All the data is there. We just need to get it out and do something with it. So that's a big priority. The other priority is capital campaign. We are not in a campaign right now, but I'm sure we will enter one in the next couple of years. We would like to use Apsona and Salesforce now, be proactive and figure out what kind of campaign reports can we build now so that when the campaign starts, we're ready. We have some reports and maybe we just need to tweak a couple of things, but we're good and we're using the tools that we have.
So you're imagining into the future and what you'll need from past experience. You're going to build them now and they'll be sitting and ready. That's very smart and strategic. So my takeaways really are pretty simple. Use different tools for different needs. That's simply just back to my original comment about Salesforce reports and Apsona Multi-Step Reports. Salesforce reports are awesome. They're user-friendly, they're fast, they're pretty easy to figure out from the beginning. They're also easy to train other people on. My colleagues, whether they've been here for 5 years or they just started last week, showing them Salesforce reports, walking through those reports is pretty straightforward, and then they can run them themselves. Apsona
is more powerful and more complicated. It really resides with me and my colleague Lisa. The two of us are in Apsona all the time. And it's because of the needs and the things that we're working on. And that's where Apsona is so powerful and so helpful. The other point I would say is to try and fail, and it's okay. Ask for help if you need it, both from Apsona, office hours, like what Chad said, your consultant, or other Apsona users. You can learn a lot from each other. And the only way to get better at this is to spend the time to learn it, to try, to keep exploring, to keep iterating. And the more you use it, the better you'll become, and the more empowered you'll be. The biggest joy I have actually over the last 6-7 years now that we've been using Salesforce and Apsona is when people come to me, my colleagues come to me and say, Vidya, can we do this? Or how do we do that? And I can say yes. I can say yes to everybody's request because we have amazing tools. Sometimes I can answer their question in 5 minutes. Sometimes I tell them, you know what, come back to me next week because this is really complicated and I need to spend the time thinking about it and playing around with Apsona or with Salesforce. But I can always say yes. It's very empowering for me, and I become more valuable to our team day after day. So those are my quick takeaways.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, just really appreciate hearing user stories because it's, we at Apsona, we're solving issues, answering questions, hearing about use cases, but it's often on behalf of other organizations. And so it's great to get somebody from an organization talking about how they use Apsona in the real world. Really appreciate your input. And we do have some questions, and we're also getting some accolades from our folks. So thank you all for expressing how much you're getting from this. I am going to highlight a couple of the questions that came up. And I think I will also try to get people opened up to talk if they need to. So Maida, I'm gonna unmute you and say that Maida was asking about running a similar report and wanting to show on the same report campaign memberships from a specific campaign and organization affiliations from a specific organization, and just asking about what that would be possible, or would that be possible? And I'm guessing the answer is yes, and it's just a matter of how, like you said, experimenting. But Maida, what report were you identifying with that you wanted to add that extra level of data to?
Yeah, so I think it was the second one, and thank you so much for this. Has been so helpful. I started working yesterday with a similar report with the multi-step, getting like the account, the primary contact information, the spouse's information, and it was great to see how I can just show the sum on a specific donation because I needed to show blank given. And I I will have to do that separately. And I just filter it and I got it done right now as Vidya was showing. What I want to add to the same report is whether that list of donors belongs to our major gift program as well. So that will be a membership to that specific campaign. And if they are board members. So our board of directors is an organization within our system, and then we connect them through org affiliations. So I guess
you're trying to highlight whether they have an affiliation. And
exactly.
So you want to know, it's almost like a yes or no question in the same way, right?
Exactly. Similar.
I can throw out a little bit of info, and Vidya, you're welcome to add in as well. And I think I will just share just to kind of, there's some other questions that I think I can help to answer. So in terms of, I think Maida, metric fields could be helpful here too. So like if I am on an account and I'm looking to see, do we have contacts at all? I'm trying to think of how to do this the right way. Well, let me just say that when it comes to metric fields, you can do a lot of things. So to answer your question, I think what I might consider is using something like number of records. So if you put a filter on your campaign member step that says only show me campaign members if they're of this particular campaign, or only show me affiliations if they're related to this organization. And then you just pull in a metric field of how many records exist. You'll most likely just have one, but that will tell you essentially yes or no by just referencing that object, but just trying to get kind of a single piece of data as opposed to a list or details about it. That might be a way to go. Or taking one of the fields and just counting them could be a method to keep it on that same line.
Chad, are you wanting to share your screen?
Oh, did I?
No, I can only see purple.
I'm so sorry. What did I do? I shared the wrong screen. I apologize, folks. Here we go.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm on the opportunity tab here, step, and I'm going down to the metric fields, and there's lots of options in here. If the field is kind of like calculatable, roll-upable, so to speak, it will show up. But there are some kind of out-of-the-box things like number of records. So you could essentially kind of count the number of campaign members or affiliations, and it will most likely just be one, but it will show up as a number, and that could be just one potential way to try to understand if something is true or not. Or you could go the calculated route like Vidya did. She looked up some records and then she referenced that previous step and gave a yes or no answer on her report.
Yeah. It could be also like the step, it was added on the relationships, for example, that could bring similar results. Instead of adding in a step on relationship object, I bring in a step of campaign members. Or and then I can bring a step of organization affiliation. Will be that similar to that relationship step that you had, Vidya?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I haven't played around a lot with organization affiliations only because the data in Salesforce in our instance is not 100%. It's very messy. So that's why I've stayed away from that.
I want to also just throw out for folks who are newer to Apsona that at Apsona's website, apsona.com, you can go to the help and support section and go to our support documentation. And we have very excellent documentation on all of our products. You can search for keywords and almost get to the right article within the first few results. And I encourage people to explore this area. I'm just going to throw the link into here for people to just keep available. And as I mentioned, you can email support@apsona.com with questions. But documentation is often the place that we'll kind of point you to because it's very thorough and it'll help answer some of the questions and more if you read through the articles. And let's see, we had some other questions. So Katie was interested in the metric field, getting like total donations for a household and wanting to know if you can filter on those subtotals, like only show where total giving is above a certain amount, for example. And Katie, I'm going to unmute you if I can get all my windows they keep disappearing, but let's see. And I think the answer is yes. I can try to show a quick example of that. Katie, you're welcome to talk if you'd like. And what I'm going to try to do here is simulate what that would be.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Okay. Hi. Thanks. Yeah, I think I was just wondering about filtering on subtotals because often we're asked to show like people who have given more than a certain amount to a certain designation during the year or whatever. So I was just wondering if that's possible here. You can't really filter on subtotals in Salesforce standard reporting.
Yeah, so I have a filter on my opportunity step, and it is based on the metric field of amount, sum, and then I'm saying that it must be greater than 100. And then I'm going to pull out, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to do.
And just to be clear, that's the sum of all the opportunities that are connected to the accounts, right?
Yes, and I want to give a little bit more details about that because it can be a little confusing. Let me first see if I did this right. Okay, so I said $100 was our threshold. I'm gonna make this a little bit easier to read really quick. I'm going to just not give us a bunch of rows, but try to give us more. Okay, so what we have here is a row per account, and we're getting our opportunity sum amount, and it looks like they're all over 100. And I'm guessing if I got rid of that filter, we'd get more. Come down here, get rid of this. And let's see if we get more results. I don't have the greatest data. Oh, here's a $75, so we know that it's technically working. So here we go. I'm going to just talk a little bit more about metric fields. I'm not going to take too much time getting technical, but metric fields, they do their calculation at the row level. So this row here is representing a single household. And so it's summing opportunities with whatever filters you're throwing at those opportunities for this household. If I were to put in details about the opportunities, like the name, what's going to happen, opportunity. Right now, I'm just pulling in the metric field, and Vidya, I'm sure you've experienced this as you've been building reports. If you put in the name, let's say, of an opportunity, that's going to be a unique piece of data per opportunity. And so what happens is it will show multiple rows because you're asking it to. You're saying, I want to see the name of every opportunity. Okay, well, that deserves its own row. So here we go. And then this metric field starts to break down because it is based on the row of the report. And so this sum is now really just summing at that single opportunity level. And it would be the same as the amount itself. So the key for metric fields in these reports is shrinking your report to show you the single row that you're trying to summarize at, and then the metric field will sum at that level. And that's kind of complicated, so I didn't mean to throw too much at you, but that is essentially one of the things that's key to remember about metric fields. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, we are at the 10-minute mark. Let's see, any other questions for Vidya? We answered a question about the first gift date. Yes, so Rachel, I can unmute you as well here. Whoops. Rachel, you asked a question about the first gift date, and you said, you know, we have on the account, we've got first gift date. Yeah. But this being able to use these metric fields allows you to get like the first gift date within a subset of criteria for gifts, or within a time frame. So were we able to answer your question?
Yeah, I think I've got more like big picture questions because I'm a very avid Apsona user, but not this tool yet. So I'm sort of like trying to suss out what I could do with it. And I was about to type a different question. Actually, I do have another question of a couple, but I know I want to make sure everybody has their questions answered.
Go for it.
Yeah, the next one was sort of more about Vidya's, thank you again. She wants to export data to send to external audiences. And I'm thinking more about answering questions internally. And I was wondering if you could talk about if I wanted to show data or answer questions for my users, they would need to log into Apsona and use it versus I could display the data on like a Salesforce dashboard.
Right. So for Apsona, you need licenses, just like you had said in the Q&A. So right now, my colleague Lisa and I have Apsona licenses, but that's it because, well, you need to pay. Number one, you need to pay for additional licenses, which makes sense. But number two, none of our colleagues will really use Apsona. They want the data, they want the report, but they're not going to go in there and build reports. So sometimes it is what it is. I'll pull it out of Apsona, stick it in a Google sheet or an Excel spreadsheet and just send that to them. And then we just have to keep going back and forth on that. But that's It depends on how complicated their requests are. But yes, everybody does, who wants to access Apsona needs a license.
And there are ways to embed your reports or various list views of Apsona into different Salesforce pages. So if you do have people with licenses and you just don't want to kind of show them how to go into Apsona, you just put the report right on a lightning page, or you can have a report, you know, on as a related list to an account record or something, and then people can just go to pages.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I will. Let me just grab that URL as well. Embedding things. Embed and direct URLs. There we go. So in the chat, I'm going to put this link to our support article about embedding Apsona views into various places. But you're right, Vidya, you do need a license to see Apsona data. So that still requires a license. We do have some view-only licenses that are intended for viewing reports. They require a higher threshold of standard licenses. So once you pass a certain threshold, you can start adding on these kind of view-only licenses. So those are options. So if anyone has interest in something like that, feel free to let us know and we could talk in further detail. Did you have another question, Rachel?
I have like a use case question, but maybe it's worth reaching out to your team specifically and saying like, this might be a good reason to push us over the edge.
Sure.
You know, I can wait. I can let other people go.
Okay. Allison had a question about whether there's a max number of steps that you can have in a multi-step report. There's not, but Apsona is a browser-based tool, and it uses kind of the brain of the browser to do the calculations. And so sometimes you hit browser limits with its ability to calculate a bunch of data at once. I don't know, Vidya, have you experienced like timeout issues with larger reports?
Not timeout issues, thank goodness, but it does take a long time. So you just have to be aware the more steps you have, the more records you're trying to pull. Like when I'm pulling alumni reports, because we have 8,000 alumni in our system, those take much longer. And when I say much longer, it's like maybe 20 seconds as opposed to 2 seconds. Compared to our grandparents report, I have 350 grandparents in our database. So those are the times that I've noticed.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And Apsona is specifically kind of like outside of Salesforce. So it uses the API to speak to Salesforce. So there is communication going back and forth that's going through the browser. And so sometimes there's a bottleneck there. But in general, yeah, we usually don't hit those limits. So there's not a technical max for those steps, which is awesome. And we are hitting time here. Deb, you had said, oh, can we get you unmuted? Why do I keep losing my participant screen? Let's see. Deb, you're welcome to
I unmuted her for you.
Oh, thank you.
I was just responding to what somebody else was asking in chat in case we didn't get to time for their question to be answered. That was all.
Oh, I'm sorry if I missed one. Okay. Okay, great. So thank you for putting that. And so copy the chats that you want to copy before the meeting ends. But feel free to reach out to us again. Thank you so much, Vidya. This has been so helpful. I think a lot of people learned a lot, and it's great just to, again, to see peer examples so you could soak it in and apply it to yourself later. So thank you very much for coming. And I think that concludes it. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you at the next webinar. Thanks all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.